Okay, so we've got some interesting stuff to unpack today. You sent over some, well, pretty wild information about Bond Natural Life.
UON.
Ticker symbol BON,
Yeah.
yeah. Web articles, social media, the whole nine yards,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to March 15th, 2025. And I think it's fair to say things have been a little active, to put it mildly.
Active is one word for it. I think volatile might be another.
You got that right. I mean, this company, they deal with natural and sustainable specialty chemicals, right? That's their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And their stock price, well, let's just say it's been on a bit of a roller coaster. And what we're trying to figure out today is, well, what's driving all these crazy swings and what does it mean for people who, well, invest?
It's all about figuring out the why behind these movements. That's the key. Because what we're seeing with Bond Natural Life, it's pretty dramatic.
No kidding. I mean, first thing that pops out, right? March 14th, boom, huge price surge. Pre-market trading alone, the stock went up like 193.60%.
From like, what, 74 cents to $1.85? Something like that?
Yeah, right around there. But it didn't stop there.
Oh, no. Not even close. You flagged some stuff from X. People talking about intraday spikes, like way up, like $11 before trading halts, multiple halts too. And here's the kicker, right? None of this seems to be tied to any official news, company announcements, anything like that. I mean, from what we've got here, at least.
So a jump like that, out of nowhere, no news, what's going on? What could possibly explain that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And when you have price going up like that, this fast, without some obvious reason, well, there are a couple things that come to mind. A short squeeze is a big one, or just a flood of speculative trading.
A short squeeze, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that term thrown around. But in this specific situation, with Bond Natural Life, what would that actually look like?
So imagine you've got all these investors. They're betting against the stock, right? They think it's going to go down. So they're shorting it. Then, bam, price shoots up. These folks, they have to scramble. They have to buy back those shares to cut their losses. But that buying, it just pushes the price even higher. And you see this in the X posts you sent. People talking about Beyond being a microfloat play, insane momentum, all that. That kind of language, it goes hand in hand with retail traders looking for a quick buck, but it also suggests, maybe some short sellers are getting squeezed out.
Microflow play. Now that's when a company has very few shares out there for trading, right? Like limited supply.
Exactly, limited supply, and that can make the price swings even crazier. It's like simple economics, right?
Yeah.
Low supply, high demand.
Price goes through the roof.
It's through the roof. And remember, just a day before all this craziness, March 13th, the stock hit a 52-week low, 74 cents. And over the past year, it's down more than 83%. So you've got this stock that's been really struggling, and then, bam, this sudden explosion. It's pretty remarkable.
I'm wondering, though, were there any hints of this coming? I vaguely remember something about a little bump up back in February.
You're right. There was a jump in February, about 12.5%. Some reports connected it to some positive stuff happening in Shanghai for them. But as you said, it didn't really last, and there wasn't anything, solid to keep it going. And that kind of points back to the idea that this latest jump, it's probably more about speculation, market hype, rather than anything fundamentally changing with the company.
Right. It really underlines the importance of separating what's driving the price right now from the actual long-term potential of the company.
Right.
Like, are they really doing well, or is it just a temporary frenzy?
100%. And if we zoom out a bit, look at the industry as a whole, specialty chemicals, there's definitely growing interest there, especially companies focused on green and sustainable solutions. That's where Bond Natural Life plays, right? And that aligns with what we're seeing in the broader market, this shift towards, environmental responsibility and innovative new approaches.
So the sector itself might have some wind in its sails, but it doesn't sound like that's directly causing this price explosion.
Not from what you've given me, no. It really looks like it's more about the market dynamics, the fact that it's a low-float stock, making it vulnerable to these big swings, and of course, social media, it's playing a huge role. It's all about hype and attention, rather than, actual news from the company, earnings reports, new partnerships, that kind of thing.
It almost makes you wonder, could this be one of those pump and dump situations? Like where the price is being artificially inflated?
It's definitely a possibility we have to consider. I mean, no real news to justify it. The price shooting up this fast, this high, it's a red flag. And for anyone listening, anyone thinking about getting involved, it's crucial to be really careful here. Watch what the company says officially. Check their regulatory filings, look for any concrete developments, and you don't just trust the chatter on social media.
Now, let's dive into the technical side of things.
Yeah.
You pulled some trading data, and I'm curious what that tells us about all this volatility.
Well, the technical indicators, they really paint a picture of this extreme price action. And like we were saying, low float stocks, they're known for these sharp movements. March 14th, it's a perfect example. That surge, it happened right after hitting a 52-week low. Talk about a sudden shift in sentiment, even if it ends up being short-lived.
And the volume of trading, that was pretty significant too, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah, March 14th saw a huge spike in volume, way above the stock's usual average daily volume.
Hmm.
And that's another sign that it's speculative interest driving the price.
And what about those moving averages? I know a lot of investors, they watch those closely. What are those telling us?
So before the surge, the stock was trading below its 50-day moving average, which was around $1.77, and way below its 200-day moving average. That was up at like 440. Then, during that crazy spike, it did briefly go above the 50-day average. For some, that's a bullish signal, but, reports have it closing back down around 74 cents, and then pre-market on the 15th, it's back up to around $1.85. It's like it couldn't hold those gains.
So a quick burst above a key level, but no real staying power.
Exactly. And if we look at the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, before the surge, it was probably indicating that the stock was oversold, suggesting maybe it was due for a little bounce. But that massive spike, it would have shot the RSI way up into overbought territory. And that often means the price has gotten ahead of itself, it's gone up too fast, and a pullback might be coming. By today, the 15th, if pre-market holds, that RSI might be starting to settle down a bit.
So we see that pattern, the sharp climb followed by a retreat. Happens a lot with these types of stocks.
It's pretty common, yeah. Now, in terms of price levels, looking ahead, there seems to be some resistance around the $2 mark based on that pre-market high. And historically, we've seen resistance in that $4 to $5 range. On the flip side, that recent low of 74 cents and maybe even the $1 level, those could act as support if the stock starts to consolidate. It's also worth noting the stock has a high beta, 1.26. That means it's more volatile than the overall market.
Okay, so putting all this together, what should someone thinking about investing in Bond Natural Life? What should they be thinking about right now? What are the key takeaways?
The most important thing is to remember there's a difference between, short-term hype and the long-term fundamental value of a company. Now, for those who really like to live on the edge, those who are comfortable with a lot of risk, there might be some opportunities here trying to ride these waves. But with no real news to back it up and a high chance of the price correcting, well, it's a risky game.
And for someone thinking long-term, what about them?
Well, for the long-term investor, the fact that Bond Natural Life is in this green innovation space, that's definitely interesting. It's a sector with a lot of potential. But without strong fundamentals, growing revenue, good profit margins, successful expansion, it's tough to say what their long-term prospects really look like. And this recent price spike, it's not really based on any of that. It doesn't necessarily change the long-term picture.
And we also have to consider the broader market, right? Like where everything else is at.
Absolutely. We are seeing some good things in growth sectors and in companies focused on sustainability, but there's also a lot going on in the economy more broadly. Concerns about valuations, shifts in how money is flowing around the world. All of that suggests that what's happening with Bond Natural Life, it might just be a speculative bubble, that kind of isolated, not really reflecting any widespread confidence from bigger institutional investors.
So to sum it all up, what's the big picture for you based on everything you've seen?
The main thing to understand here is that this crazy price action with Bond Natural Life, it's most likely due to speculative trading and social media hype. It's not coming from any significant official news or any fundamental shift in how the company operates.
And the biggest word of caution for anyone watching this.
Be careful, really careful. These volatile situations, they're very risky. The price could drop just as fast as it went up. It's important to avoid getting caught up in a potential pump and dump scheme.
So what should our listeners be doing if they're following this stock? What's the best course of action?
Well, the most important thing is to keep an eye on official company statements, check their investor relations stuff, and rely on reputable financial news sources for verified information. Don't just get caught up in the social media noise.
Here's a final thought for everyone to chew on. Given this global push towards sustainability, what are the fundamental things you should be looking at to figure out if a company like this really has long-term potential? What are the questions you should be asking beyond just, watching the ticker go up and down every day? What separates the real deal from the flash in the pan?
That's a great point. Understanding those fundamentals, that's essential for making smart investment choices.
And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. If you found this discussion helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. We appreciate you tuning in.